Want to go far in business and in life? You can't do it alone. The secret is expanding your network of personal relationships, building friendships, connecting on an intimate level, away from the office, over a coffee or cocktail. Welcome to All In with the real Nate Payo. The show that asks what happens when you go all in and leverage the power of your network of personal relationships.
From author Donnie Bovine comes the book, How to Be a Success Champion, available on Amazon. After years of living other people's dreams, author Donnie Bovine decided to jump out on his own and start a business, thinking it would be easy. Instead, he had a rude awakening and quickly understood that he had spent 20 years being an employee and had no idea how to be a business owner. His business was tanking, and he was on the brink of losing everything when he decided to fight for business freedom. In this must-read and life-changing book, author Donnie Bovine shares with readers his story intermingled with lessons learned from his mistakes and his failures. In How to Be a Success Champion, you will find advice the author received from mentors and how he went from zero to a six-figure business. The author walks you through the steps of how to get out of your own way, how to play the game of business and win, find your strengths, how to network effectively, how to build a personal brand, how to create champions for your business, how to get great at sales, how to take complete ownership of you and your business. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Bovine, available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback editions. Order your copy right now. It makes a great book for corporate events too. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Bovine, available on Amazon.
Hello. Welcome to the All In podcast with Nate Payo. Of course, I am your host, Nate Payo. Today, I'm joined with Tyler Hansen. So Tyler's been a leading sales guy for a lot of years. He's been with he's somebody I've connected with in the past, and I think he's got an exciting story. He's been with some tech startups, Luxor One, which is parcel lockers for multifamily. It's pretty cool technology that allows you to receive and retrieve Amazon packages and UPS packages, all that kind of stuff remotely, so you don't have to get it at your door and worry about package theft. And then after that was acquired by a company called Assa Abloy, he left and he joined another tech company called Zumper, which is in the multifamily real estate space, helping connect renters or residents to living places in apartment living. So it's got a lot of experience in sales, got a lot of experience in tech, and he also started his career in the fitness industry. So I think he's touching on a lot of topics I like to talk about, which is fitness, tech, real estate, sales, all that kind of stuff, and networking. So welcome to the show, Tyler. How are you?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nate. I'm doing great. Great, man.
So we were chatting earlier a little bit, and I think there's a good way to kind of start the conversation, was how people get started in sales. And it's just kind of funny. I think there's like a few jobs that people get like right out of high school, right out of college, and they just get thrown to the wolves, trial by fire of sales. One, I think, is people go work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. That's the one I always see people at. And the other one is they work in fitness, either selling gym memberships or selling personal training sessions. And it's one of those things, you got to learn your craft very quickly. You're dealing with a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities, and you're also probably getting told no a bunch. You're getting rejection thrown in your face, and you learn quickly to overcome it and tell your story. So let's talk about that. How is that as your first experience in the business world?
Yeah, I love that question. My story is a little bit different from the standpoint of, when I got out of college and I came down to San Francisco, I had a job lined up. I moved down here from Oregon and had, a job that I was looking forward to, and that was during the dot-com bust. That job and the entire department within that company was eliminated like a week and a half before I moved down here. And so I found myself living in San Francisco with no job and needed to kind of figure things out. And I sort of fell into fitness. And the role that I fell into specifically was at 24 Hour Fitness, and it was in like a manager trainee program. And it wasn't something that I had considered all that much, but I'd always been a believer in it. And once I started working in the industry, it was just something that caught my heart, and held a number of different management and really just leadership roles at 24. Amazing place to learn. And, after a few years there, I kind of leaned a little bit more into the sales part of things. And that's really where I found my passion was on the growth side of the business. You mentioned a lot of people start their careers, and it's, I think back, the hamster wheel starts turning. I think back to all the different, the guys and gals over the years that I hired and was their first job out of college. And I look at where they're at now, and a lot of them I'm still in touch with, and they've gone on to do some pretty amazing things. But I think you're spot on with, I think fitness is for me, it was an incredible experience and introduction into the professional world. And I know for a lot of other people that I'm in touch with, it's where they learn that foundational set of skills to be able to, make money and make business happen. So,
Well, it's like an interesting concept, because like you do it and you're like, I don't know, maybe people are drawn to fitness because they personally like fitness and they like working out, and like, hey, I love hanging out in a gym. But you're also getting a chance to really serve people and help people achieve their goals. And I think that's something that sales and networking is a skill that takes time to develop, as you really learn, like, hey, my success is based on the success of my clients, and you start getting them to achieve their goals. And it's an exciting process. And I think there's a lot of fulfillment when you see people like you can see that you're making a difference in someone else's life.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. And that's generally one of the first things that, we teach. And, this is thinking back, years and years ago. I still get a hand in the fitness space with, my wife and her gym and that sort of thing. But it's one of the first things that you sort of learn is that, hey, we're in this to help people. And that's really where your mindset has to be. One of the first things I recall, and it's like, clear as day, is if you chase the money, it's going to run. So, really focus on the person that's in front of you and the opportunity that they have to change their life for the better. And for the people I've worked with over the years are fully bought in, and most of the people that I've ever met in fitness are fully bought into that notion.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you, I think like your career path is very fascinating. I think a lot of people would be very, I don't know, envious of it. It's like these, I think right now, highlight jobs that you've held that I think a lot of people gravitate towards and they want nowadays. It's like the old rock star baseball player days is like, you either want to be in fitness or you want to be working in startups and Silicon Valley. And you have done that for a lot of years. You've done it successfully. You've been with a company that did really well, and you exited with them, which, a lot of people are like, hey, going through an exit or an acquisition of a company is a unique challenge in and of itself, and then going back into the startup world again another time. So would you say, like, what is your take on luck? Does luck play a role in like the way your life has progressed, or what is your take on luck?
Yeah. On the topic of luck as it pertains to career stuff, that's a tough question. I think that there are certain elements. I mean, I think a lot of, like, Nate, where my mind goes when I think about luck is a place of gratitude for all the things that I have been given. So like, a body that functions well for the most part, a brain that works, and, kind of being born into, the environment, given some of the opportunities and that sort of thing that you're given. So that's kind of where my head goes with regards to luck. But on specifically more on the topic of what we were talking about and some of the things that I've been able to do in my career, it's really been I think a function of, timing with people. And I believe there's an element of luck certainly tied to that. And then the individuals that I met that sort of lent themselves to those new opportunities. A huge part of it, which is what you preach, that networking piece, is something, I very much believe in, and it's what helped, create those opportunities for me to move on, to take on other roles. And in every case, there was a very strong networking element to it. And I feel very lucky that I was able to meet those people that opened those doors. A lot of times it wasn't just one person, but it was multiple people that helped guide that next step on my journey. But I really think, on the topic of being lucky, there's, we're all given a lot of, I believe, a lot of chances to do things, and what you do when you're given those opportunities. I think, we get lucky, and then there's times where we can also come in and make a major impact and create that luck for ourselves. So it's a great topic, one that I probably need to put a little bit more thought into.
Well, you did touch on networking, and we share a connection with another gentleman, Joshua Grosser, that was over at Luxor One, and his story of getting there was this similar thing too. Is like, hey, you guys are in Silicon Valley, and you're kind of working in different industries, and people know who you're at. And I think he got recruited over too because he had worked with, I believe, the gentleman that founded it. I'm probably getting his story all wrong, but like it was just kind of like, hey, we've worked together. I'm doing something. Like, why don't you come over to get me? And I don't know. Maybe I'm making it simpler, but it seems like in this like Silicon Valley world, it's like people are used to working for startup companies, and you're like, okay, I'm busy with this project. It's I've been in it for 3-5 years, and then you're between projects, and somebody's like, hey, I'm working on this new one. You want to come over and do this thing? And like, yeah, that's cool, and let's go over here. And it really is a lot about networking to find the good key people that you're going to bring on board to start something. Your initial hires, not just in startups, but in any company, the team that you bring on has a lot to do with the success of whatever projects you're working on, the dynamics, how well you guys work together, the creativity that flows, the energy that's produced. It's an important step in, how you develop teams and work with people.
And I think, I was going to say, you did actually capture that right. That's pretty much what happened. I had, some, colleagues, professional acquaintances, friends, definitely I consider them friends that, originally it started in the laundry and dry cleaning locker space. Mm-hmm. So, the founder of that team, I loved that business from the second I heard about it, and was a customer of it. And I'd been in touch with the founder and Chris, who's a good friend of mine now, and he helped grow that internationally. And I was always intrigued. And then when the opportunity with package lockers came along, I did some homework and looked at the problem it solved in the addressable market. And at the time, I had a pretty awesome job at Intuit, and an awesome mentor who I'm still very close with, but decided to take that kind of leap of faith. And yeah, it was a direct result of sort of the networking and a startup opportunity that, right place, right time.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with things. Is like when you're, at least for me, when I was starting off my career, you don't put a lot of effort into deliberately growing your network. You're like, I work with this person. Like, it's kind of cool. I met somebody. And then like you realize like 10 years later, like you're going up in your career at the same time they're going up in their career, and you're all like, entry level newbies, and next thing you know, you're both at like running portions of business, and you're like working well together, and you're like, man, I wish I would have like spent some more time managing some of these relationships or making them more deliberate early on, and not just going, hey, I got work friends and I got social friends and they don't overlap, and then all of a sudden your social friends, have life happen, and they kind of drift off, and you're seeing their work friends a lot more, and they become the people you interact with. And those are the people that like you're able to call when you need problems, or if you're looking for a job, they're the ones that help you fill it, that type of stuff. So, going to your transition from corporate America into it's a huge company. I think a lot of people know them for QuickBooks and for TurboTax.
Yep.
And to say, hey, I'm going to take a leap of faith and go work for a company that may or may not make it. Granted, Silicon Valley, I guess, is probably a little bit more common for people to do that. But if you're, Midwest Joe, leaving safe, secure job to go to the unknown is not always this easy decision to make. So, like, what kind of advice do you give to people if they say, hey, I want to make a transition. I would want to get into building businesses or build my own business, either as a early employee or a founder or a CEO. And is it right for everybody?
Yeah. And, I tend to think, I sort of half joke that, I'm as close as it gets to being an entrepreneur without actually being one, from the, more traditional standpoint of, how you might define an entrepreneur. But, with my wife and her starting her business, I think for me, that transition out of like a large company where there's, I think relative sort of safety with, your job and the ability to, to have a consistent income, to then going to a startup. It's actually more, for me, it was more calculated, I guess, than it might seem. And I had a lot of people that came and they're like, you left your job at Intuit to sell like what, like package boxes, like post office boxes, like they didn't really fully understand. But, by the time I had joined the company, a lot of the product stuff had been, developed. It wasn't super, super early, but more importantly, I had a couple of individuals, at least there was, a couple guys that had a ton of experience in the locker space and with kind of getting into multifamily, and it wasn't really quite as risky as, say, your real early stage pre-revenue startup. So I came in like just when we were starting to sell. And then also I knew that if that, for some reason, that didn't work out, I was pretty sure it would, but if it didn't, there was that dry cleaning and laundry locker business that also still, I believe, has a ton of potential. And I had a lot of energy around that as well. So there was sort of a little bit of at least a backup plan there. But at the time, I was, based on sort
I lost you. I don't know if you can hear me. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Now I do.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where I lost you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you were talking about, what were you talking about? It was like right when you started going into, you just finished talking about the dry cleaners, the dry clean business, and that was kind of like it went.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm trying to think. with dry cleaning, with the dry clean lockers and that sort of thing, we there was a sort of I guess a plan B, so to speak, from that standpoint. So it wasn't as risky, but it still was an entry into the startup world and one that had a great product market fit.
Yeah, I remember when it started coming out, like you'd start hearing about, people we would have the apartment projects or communities, and there'd be so many packages coming in. This was like 4 years ago, and so it was still like not the level I think people are at now, and I can't imagine what things have been like with the current situation, but they're like, hey, we don't have a place to store these, like let's start looking at lockers. And you're just like, this is like such a cool business because it's tech, but it's simple, like in the sense of like it's like, it's not like inventing crazy apps and the way change the way people live. And it's just like, hey, this just makes a lot of sense. So I get how it's startup, it feels risky, but at the same time it felt like there's a huge need for this, and if you can manufacture these, like they're going to go. And the way everybody's kind of set up, it's like, there's not a easy barrier to entry. There's right. Once you kind of like get in with a company, like there's a big back end software and a management of it. And it's like, okay, it's not easy to make a transition. So it from looking at it, it is just like, hey, yeah, this is something a lot of people need. And it's not hard to it's not hard. It is hard to knock somebody off the block if you came in with something else later. But so then you left from Luxor. Did you go right to Zumper, or was there a transition in between that?
There was a transition time in between that. So I was doing some consulting work for another early stage company, and at the time it was really around, okay, as I know there's a new chapter coming and that sort of thing, like what direction do I fully want to go? So my next role was a little bit, it was in a consulting role where I was kind of building out some of the go-to-market types of things and kind of understanding, is the multifamily space one that I want to stay in, or do I explore in more detail some of these other opportunities with other tech companies? And I had probably, I don't know, I think, Nate, I had several dozen meetings over the course of a few months. And for me, I've always really enjoyed working in the multifamily real estate space. I mean, since, the first day I came in, I think I went to a multifamily trade show with Chris at Luxor One. And from that point, it was something, it was an industry I could see myself working into. And so I just did a bunch of homework on pretty much every tech company that serves the multifamily space. And I found one that I just aligned with and really respected, the leadership and the direction of the company. And it was that real kind of growth stage that, got me excited. And so, found a way to kind of beat the doors down and join that organization.
Yeah. So do you think like there's the networking played a portion of finding your role at Zumper, or, how did you come about that opportunity?
Yeah, it definitely did. I think that's that's probably one of the most valuable skills I think I've learned. And it started probably as I was moving on from the fitness space, but every role that I've had has been really like a product of just networking and having the right conversations with the right people. And then there's some serendipitous, collisions. So you meet people at, trade shows and that sort of thing. And one conversation kind of leads to another. And then from there, I think it's, there's a lot of work behind the scenes. And, I kind of set some goals on what I wanted to accomplish and the types of people I wanted to work with. And then from there, I just, it was about, getting the right introductions and having the right conversations. And then, of course, I think for, companies that are being responsible and checking those references and resources and looking at the background, that sort of thing. And I'd put in a lot of the work on the back end to, for them to feel comfortable and say, yeah, we'll bring this guy on as a leader. But there's definitely a huge network component to it. And
well, I think there's also a big network component on the customer side, because you probably had a lot of overlap with customers you're reaching out to. Maybe not the exact same person at the same position, but you're going to have a leg up to say, hey, I'm going to call on XYZ property management company. Like, I know the guy over there. Who do I got to call to get in front of, the right marketing person? So I think you're having your network on both sides is just as important. You never know who's going to be your customer. One of the things I always say is the multifamily world is really, really small. So you never want to burn a bridge, because you might have a bad experience working with one company. So you treat the person that's over there in the role that's your counterpart poorly. Well, they might bounce off and they might go to your favorite client and work there. And all of a sudden, like, you're at their mercy because you're a jerk to them to begin with. So I think you never know where those relationships are going to play a part or play a big role. So you got to treat everybody with, like, a lot of respect, a lot of class, and just say, hey, look, you never know who's going to be your next boss. So treat them that way.
That's so well said. And, I learned from a mentor of mine at Intuit, Kyle, it's like, never leave anyone burned. And that's one thing that I can say, that I feel really great about with Luxor. And that was the mentality we took all around. Like, all kinds of crazy stuff happens with, you're talking about hardware, software, and a service and support element. And there's a huge service element that I think is blended into sales. And I believe it's being talked about more and more. And you have a lot of the sales trainers and people that are able to, success, or they're able to articulate, just how important it is that service piece is there to the growth of the business. But you're right, like in multifamily, that was sort of the thing is, no matter what happens, like we're never going to leave anybody feeling burned, and we'll go above and beyond. If that means me like jumping on a flight out to Chicago tomorrow morning to like smooth things over with the customer, we would, spare no expense in doing that. And that's definitely, I think paid off both for, that organization, for me, personally, because you're right, those connections and the people that are willing to say, hey, this guy or this gal gets it. And, they're going to, when they say they're going to do something, they'll not only do it, but, I feel like they'll go to the moon for me to make it so.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So that kind of leads me to my next question for you, which is this idea of all in. And what does all in mean to you in regards to like an idea or an outcome?
Yeah. And I think that all in is sort of, when we were talking, that's one of the phrases that really sort of captured me and got me thinking, like how would I define all in, and what are times in my life where I can say, okay, I'm all in on this particular thing. And I think, for me, it's like when you're all in, you're so focused, you're so committed to whatever that thing is. And I have a couple examples that pop into my head, but where anything other than success in what it is you're doing is heartbreak. So like failure is not an option, where it actually feels like, life or death, even if it's not. So I recall, like, after I made the transition from the fitness industry into tech, and it was challenging. It was pretty rough, and I was used to more of a face-to-face, selling process and being an expert on the things I was talking about. And I was having a really tough time. And this was in like the first, probably few months. And I had a manager take me out for a beer after a rough week or a rough day, and he kind of said, "Hey, man, like, I understand you're really passionate, but this is just a job. Like, it's just work." And my response was, for me, it's not that. It's like, it's way more than that. It's like, I don't have a choice. Like, this is, I think I told him, I think I literally said this, Nate, at the time. I was doing my MBA. I was under a lot of stress, but I said, I'd rather die than not be successful at this role. And that's like really extreme language. But it is, I think it is how I felt at the time, like in that moment. And I was spread thin in a number of areas, but this particular thing, which was, figuring out tech sales and figuring out this next chapter in my career, was something that I was so committed to that, failure just was not something that was possible.
Mm-hmm. And that's like a mindset, like it doesn't come naturally. I mean, but it doesn't. Like some people are like, I think predisposed to being competitive and not they hate losing more than they like winning. Like, so they absolutely hate losing. But I do think it still can be taught, and it's about having discipline and questioning your why and really getting deep down inside and making, you're asking yourself the hard questions and not giving up. And people that tend to give up earlier and more often the more times they do. And then the people that just like are hard-headed and they're stubborn and they're going to grind it out, at first you're like, that's crazy, but I think they know like what they're capable of. And when you start challenging your mindset and you start challenging your beliefs and say, hey, I can do this if I put my mind to it, there's a way to get there. You can change your mindset to be more determined, more resilient. And when you push yourself past those limits that you put on yourself, I think you go back and you say, hey, I can always do more. And then the next time those challenges come up, like you said, you got like frustrated and had a bad day. You maybe understand it's part of the process so much. And like it, just because it's a struggle, you don't maybe beat yourself up quite as bad about like, hey, it sucks. It's like, but tomorrow's another day. We're not giving up. You said failure's not an option. So as long as you get up another day and keep chasing after it, you haven't failed yet. So there's a lot to be said about the tenacity. And I think, if people say that they don't have it, I do think that they can learn it, but they just need to start developing habits that instill that and work hard towards them. And the bigger tenacity comes with it when you start paying attention to the small things too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And for making big changes in, life, whether it's career or otherwise, I think, if we're looking to accomplish something great, like inherent in that, in accomplishing that thing or, completing whatever it is, like inherent in that is, like learning and growing and opening your mind, and you're sort of forced to be humble. And for me, it was taking a step backward. I was in a leadership role. And again, as I mentioned, a little bit earlier in the show was, I was a master in this certain thing and knew the fitness space really well, and then had to go to a place where I was really kind of forced to be humble and to listen to others and to open my mind and become just a great student and a sponge. And that was part of that kind of all in, because if I was going to accomplish that, I had to do so by learning and practicing humility and so on.
Yeah, there's no doubt you're embodying the vision of all in that I hold in my head. And I think you've described it to a T, what you had in mind too. So we're kind of winding up a little bit, running out of time, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk about what Zumper is and, maybe describe who that ideal person is that Zumper and yourself wants to work with.
Sure. Yeah. Zumper is it's an essential marketplace for apartments. So, mission is to make renting an apartment as easy as booking a hotel room. And I think we're very much on our well on our way to doing that. our primary customer right now and who I'm working with the most is going to be those multifamily operators. So there's a number of different ways that the platform works, and of course you have the app, and for people familiar with renting an apartment, it's there can be a lot of really tough kind of catching points, whether it be getting to the apartment to view it or putting a down payment on it, or there's all kinds of things that come up. But eliminating the stress that's tied to that for people searching for those, and helping them land in a place to live where they love is sort of the mission. And and I think we do a great job using technology to do that. So as far as who we're, where to. What the other question, Nate, was around
who's your ideal client, if you hadn't described that?
Yeah, and I would say we work close with really all of the largest national multifamily players, and I work with a lot of the smaller regional players as well, but it's really anyone that's in that multifamily space. Most of our customers are, say, 25, 50 units and higher. But anybody that's renting can actually, can list their units on our marketplace. We're mostly working with really those. I'm mostly working with those 25 units and higher. But it's really it's a platform that's built for all shapes and sizes, and one that I think really does a great job accommodating the smaller players as well as the larger REITs and big time management companies and that sort of thing.
Very cool. So if somebody wants to get connected with you specifically or get connected with Zumper, where should they go to find you?
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Best place, I think, to connect with me is going to be LinkedIn. So you can probably search, Tyler Hansen, and throw Zumper in there. It's the best way to connect with me. I recommend, download the Zumper app on your phone and just check out, apartments in the area and that sort of thing. Start using it, and you'll kind of see what all the rage is about.
Very cool. So all those links will be in the show notes. I encourage you, if you're listening, to check it out. Get connected with Tyler here. He's got a wealth of knowledge with regards to fitness, sales, networking, Silicon Valley startup, multifamily. There's so many amazing bits of information. I think when you said hey, I'm on LinkedIn, that's a really growing platform right now, and I think people sometimes forget hey, I'm not in multifamily, I'm not in tech, so why would I want to connect with somebody in there? And the thing is you never know going to make a difference in your life, and people have so many different skill sets that they're experts in that may not at first glance be relevant. There's an amazing conversation to have, and I think you got a ton of advice to give people, and I'd encourage them to connect with you regardless if they're selling tomatoes in Texas or if they're have 10,000 apartments they want to. There's a lot of value in just connecting with you, so I encourage you guys to go out there on LinkedIn and check them out. So Tyler, thank you again for coming on the show and having a conversation. Really liked what you had to say. Again, tons of knowledge and lots of experience there.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me, Nate.
All right. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Make sure to visit our website, therealnatepeo.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, so you'll never miss an episode of All In. While you're at it, if you found value, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if simply tell 2 friends about the show. Looking to connect? You can find Nate Peo on LinkedIn or Instagram.